Oh, hello. Welcome back to the continuing lecture series on time value of money. So today's topic is uh, effective interest rate or APY. So, um, so what is effective interest rate or APY? Now, APY stands for annual percentage yield. And that term is as opposed to APR, annual percentage rate. So how are these two rates different? I mean, how is APY different from APR? Now, and since APY is effective interest rate, in other words, APY means effective interest rate. So how is effective interest rate different from just interest rate? I mean, think about it. Just because the name is different, it should mean something different, right? And effective, I mean, the term effective means that's what really effectively applies, right? So that means that's the rate that effectively applies, right? And also, if you think about the difference between, just by semantics, right? If you think about the difference between APY and APR, now think about it. Yield, that's annual percentage yield. Now, do you remember from the first topic we talked about, right? The return on investment, the first topic, the very first topic. Towards the end of that topic, we talked a lot about yield, right? We also talked why? Because we talked about the yield curve. And at the time, I told you yield is just another name for annualized return, annualized. Okay? And we also, prior to that, we talked a lot about the difference between the holding period return and annualized return, right? Remember house value example, scenario one, scenario two, right? In scenario one, what was the scenario one? Scenario one is the case where you buy the house and use it as your home, simply as a residence, right? Whereas in scenario two, you purchase the property for investment purpose or rental purpose. So the difference between scenario one and scenario two is that in scenario one, over time, there will be only capital gains or capital loss, right? Because the house value, the property value would go up or go down. And that's the only source of cash flow, right? Either capital gain or capital loss. But in scenario two, there are two sources of cash flow: capital gains and rental income. I mean, capital gain, capital loss, and rental income. And I told you the holding period will be different, right, for capital scenario one and scenario two, because the cash flow during the holding period would be different, right? Of course, the cash flow during the holding period in scenario two is greater than scenario one because there is additional cash flow of rental income, right? And I also told you that both scenario 1 and scenario 2 are exactly an analogy, the same analogies for um, zero coupon bond and coupon bond, right? Because in scenario 1, in the sense that the zero coupon bond doesn't pay any interest, right? And in the sense that it is sold at discount, it is exactly like scenario 1 because there will be only capital gains. And coupon bonds are like scenario 2 because there will be capital gains or capital loss, which is like at the end, at maturity, you redeem the face value, right? And then in the meantime, during the holding period, you receive uh, the interest or coupon interest on the bond. Well, and then and also the depending on the holding period, right? If the holding period is 10 years, let's say you were holding that house for 10 years, right? The total return would be the source of the holding period return, right? In other words, total return and the holding period return uh, would mean the same thing. But then the reason for, and I told you we need some metrics or some way to compare the assets being held for different holding periods, right? I mean, you cannot directly compare the holding period, the return, total return on 5-year holding period, directly with the total return over 10 holding period because the holding periods are different. I mean, the longer the holding period, um, the chances are that the return, the total return, would be greater than the shorter return on the shorter holding period, right? So it cannot be a fair comparison, right? So that's brought us to the geometric average. Remember that because annualized return. I mean, think about it. To compare these two different returns on these two different holding periods, right? Of two separate assets. You would have to. The best way to do that, by just any um, common sense would be the average, right? To take the annual average of those returns. And then that brought us to the question of whether it is okay to take simple average or arithmetic average, which is the basically the average that you generally know of, right? And until that point, you didn't know the difference between weighted average and simple average, and you didn't know the difference between arithmetic average and geometric average, right? And at that point, I told you that because of the compounding going on, right, over the during the holding period of that particular asset, you can use simple average. You have to use the geometric average, right? And that was the first time you met the geometric average, right? And later in the as we were discussing the time value of money, right? That we talked about the difference between as we were talking about the compounding formula in simple a single cash flow model, right? Um, you are able to be introduced to the steps of derivation of the geometric average, right? Remember that? Because only then you are mathematically prepped, right? To be introduced to the uh, steps of derivation for R, the rate, which is the, which was known to you as geometric average until that point, right? So now, so then, our next question is, yeah, the APR is, the rate or the quoted rate, quoted, right? The interest rate, the quoted interest rate. In other words, that's the nominal interest rate. They uh, they quote you when you, let's say, you go to the bank, you want to deposit your $10,000, right? And you ask them, so what is the interest rate? Oh, it's 6%. If they say that, that is APR. That is the quoted nominal interest rate. But now let's think about it. Depending on uh, when you put your money into the bank, depending on the product, right? Depending on the product. For example, of course, you wouldn't put your money into just a savings account. And you know that very well. You know why very well? Because in today's macroeconomic environment, uh, savings account doesn't pay any interest, right? They It's almost 0.1%, and I don't think it's even 0.1% even these days since the last time Federal Reserve slashed the interest rate to zero. I mean that means Fed funds rate. Um, that was just about a week or two ago, right? So now you can't even, I don't think you can even get 0.1% on the savings. So nobody put, if you are sensible and you don't need this $10,000 anytime soon, then you would put it into a CD, right? But again, CDs used to pay something like 2%, even last year, 2.5%, or, at least, even early this year, 1.75%, or, and after March, second week of March, when Fed chairman, um, due to this, uh, pandemic crisis, in an effort to boost the economy, uh, the Federal Reserve slashed the interest Fed funds rate back to zero. So therefore, all the interest rates are basically tied together with the Fed funds rate, right? In the for short-term interest rates, right? And for long-term interest rates, we did this in quiz one. Long-term interest rates are based on 10-year Treasury note yield, right? So now here comes the term yield again, and in topic one, right? In ROI, we talked about yield curve. At the time, I told you yield is the annualized return, right? So then you might say, now you can connect this now with the, we did, geometric, that's the annualized return. Yes. So yield is another name for annualized return, annualized. But then isn't APR anyway, if that's the interest rate that I would earn my CD, wouldn't that be also, wouldn't that mean, annualized return? Yes and no. Why? First of all, APR is equal to APY if the compounding frequency is annual. Okay, you understand? If compounding frequency is just once a year, then there is no difference between APR and APY. Okay? But then that means there will be difference, right? There will be difference if the compounding frequency is not 1. Yeah, if the compounding frequency is greater than 1, then there will be a difference between APR and APY. So let's think about it. Let me stop this and take you to. Let me take you to the Excel file. Let me show you. Let me show you the Excel file. All righty, there you go. Okay, what do you see there? $10,000. Oh, it says 1,000, but let's make it 10,000, just like our example. Okay. Okay, let's all make it 10,000 through and through. And I've been telling you I've been preaching about the importance of good keeping, so make it neat. I would, yeah. You see what I did? I just I think that's not the crucial. Of course, it's not a crucial issue, but I would like to keep the model, neat, right? The neat organized structure is also very important, right? Then obviously anybody who looks at the model all in a uniform structure and uniform format would find it more pleasing than, or more less stressful to look at something that is well and neatly organized than something that is just chaotic or undulating, or right something less well taken care of, right? So anyway, our point is that this is our example. Let's give it 2 decimal places. By default, at least 2 decimal places, 2 to 3 decimal places. Now, so if you put your $10,000 in a CD, right, and the prevailing market rate is 6%, and you put it for 5 years. But why do I have so many rows? Because I have different scenarios. Now, of course, you can tell in this means compounding is just once a year, twice a year, so semi-annual. That's only compounding, monthly, weekly, daily, and this is continuous compounding, right? Why? Because that means infinity, right? If the compounding frequency is infinite, then that would make it, continuous, right? The continuous time. So let's see the difference. We know, we already know that the future values will be different depending on the compounding frequency. And you know by now already that the more frequently compounded, or the higher the compounding frequency, the greater the future value. Okay, so that's nothing, that's nothing, nothing new. That's something we already know. So the usual thing, the periodic rate, APR divided by M. And since in this case, in annual compounding, since the M is 1, it's not gonna make any difference. It's still gonna be 6%, right? The total number of compounding, because it's annual, is gonna be 5, right? So the future value will still be P times 1 plus R raised to N, right? There you go. But now, let's do the rest of them. I'm gonna highlight. I'm gonna select 3 cells all together and drag it down. Okay. And we'll get, as expected, we'll get different results, different future values, right? And these different future values are clearly the proof of what I said. The greater the compounding frequency, the greater the future value, right? Now, and then one question arises then. I don't know if that question also arises in your mind or not, but at least it's plausible to, and it's quite, natural that some people might come up with a question such as, so let's take a look at this quarterly compounding, and quarterly compounding is clearly better than annual compounding. So then your question is, if there is one single annual interest rate, right? That would give us the same future value, right? Without quarterly compounding, right? In other words, if I do just annual compounding, right? Just annual compounded just once a year. So over 5 years, there will be only 5 compoundings, right? Now, I get this because only because the compounding was quarterly, right? And so this quarterly rate was compounded 20 times over 5 years, right? And this is the result of the quarterly compounding for 5 years, right? But if it wasn't quarterly compounding, but just annual compounding, right? So what kind of annual rate will give me the same future value, right, as the result of quarterly compounding, right? So what if there is an annual APR that would give me the same future value as quarterly compounding? What simple annual rate will give me the same future value? Understand? Okay. In other words, if the compounding was not quarterly but rather annual, right? With annual compounding, 6% compounded annually for 5 years won't take us to this future value. It will only take us to this future value. So obviously it would have something greater than this, isn't it right? It would have to be something greater than 6%. So the question is, what kind of APR would take us to the same future value as this, right? That is the question. Now, so that's also called APY, okay? And then the formula for APY is not a very difficult one, okay? So let me get back to the PowerPoint and show you, or let me get to the whiteboard, okay? Let me stop this. So here on the whiteboard, I will put so effective interest rate. Okay, I'll call that R star. Now, R star, which is also APY, right? It's nothing but 1 plus APR adjusted for divided by M raised to M, right? Now, isn't it something already very, familiar, isn't that right? Because it's basically what is this? This is basically the periodic rate, right? We've been using the periodic rates all along, right? Because that's what really matters in compounding, right? And this is what? That's the compounding frequency. So in other words, this is basically, what within a year, right? Within a given year, how much compounding is actually done, right? And the result of that. So if you have $10,000, and then just putting it just for 1 year, this will give you actually the future value at the end of year 1 if you do this, right? But then think about it. We're talking about the rate. I mean, this is basically interest rate, but 1 means there is no present value or principal multiplied to this, so this is only the rate portion, right? But this is gross return, gross rate of return, meaning because 1 is the original principal itself, right? So just to get the net return, you will have to net out. You'll have to net out 1 or subtract 1, right? Okay, then this will give you only the net return or net effective rate or APY. Okay, so that's not a very difficult thing. APY, this is for discrete time compounding, right? What about the continuous compounding? We should talk about the case of continuous compounding. First of all, you remember in continuous compounding, we have to use Euler's number, right? But again, then we didn't get a chance about how to use Euler's number in compounding. So suppose we are trying to find a future value using continuous compounding. So how do we do that? Of course, P, future value is P times principal times, right? Then you might think, 1 plus something, uh, uh, in continuous compounding, yes, that we can do it like that, but the result would be anyway something like this. The result would be we'll have to use Euler's number. So we multiply it by Euler's number, right? Raised to APR times T or N, right? I mean, that's times, right? Times AR times T, okay? Because this is already, 1 plus, right? 1 over infinity, right? So then in this case, right, if you uh, if you want to find the effective rate in this case, all you need to do is simply E raised to R. This R means, APR. You don't need T because we are just, 1 year is enough, right? Minus 1, okay? E raised to R minus 1. Now, when doing this, entering this in Excel, right, you have to know, in Excel, Euler's number is called exponential function, exponential E, right? So there is a already there is already a pre-built or pre-built function for that, which is called exp. Okay, exp, and then in the parentheses you enter that APR or R times T. Okay. So you might wonder, don't we need to raise it to E? This is, this is not multiplying. This is not multiplication. It's, it's automatically, when you enter exp, whatever comes inside the parentheses is, automatically recognized by Excel as exponent. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. All right, so so let's switch back to Excel. All righty, so everyone is back on Excel. Okay, let's take a look. So here, what do we do about the future value? All you need to do is P times, okay, exp, exponential function, right? It's here already. You can just double click 6% times T. You get it's slightly better than daily compounding, right? Now, APY or effective interest rate is oops. So what do? 1 plus APR over M, right, in the parentheses, and then raised to M, right? Now here, but then think about it. This is already that, isn't it right? This is already the periodic rate is already 1 plus APR over M, right? So all you need to do is just recycle that result and raise it to m, right? You see what I'm talking about? Um, uh, because the periodic rate is, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is, open parenthesis. I just, you do this, in other words. If you do this, then -1, right? If you do this, and in this E2 is already, APR over M, right? So we are exactly, doing that, 1 plus APR over M raised to M -1. So hit enter, and of course, in case of annual compounding, I've already told you this. I've said this, several times already, over and over. There's no difference between APR and APY. But then try this, right? They are clearly different, right? Isn't that right? And then what about the the APY for the continuous compounding? All you need to do is EXP, right? And just slip a hand, and then hold your mouse, or keep your hands firm on your laptop or computer, because a slide of a hand could result in a disaster. Now, then, right, exponential function, right, raised to r -1. Hit enter. You see why continuous compounding is still better than, right, anything else still, right? Now, so this is how you find this is how you do the continuous compounding, and this is how you find the APY. Now, let's go back to the slide one more time, and then let's take a look at the now take a look at the title: effective interest rate, APY / EAR. What does that EAR mean then? That stands for equivalent annual rate. What does equivalent annual rate? That simply means and a simple annual rate that is equivalent to the that gives you an equivalent result of continuous. That would give you an equivalent result to a higher compounding frequency than just one, right? Okay. EAR, equivalent annual rate; APY, annual percentage yield; AER, annual, it would be, annual equivalent rate, or whatever you call it, annual effective rate, Okay, so it goes by different names. Okay, it goes by different names. So annual effective rate, or annual equivalent rate, or effective annual rate. No matter, no matter what it goes by, the important thing is, um, it's not the name that matters. It's the substance that matters, right? It's the actual thing that matters. How it is uh, how it is done, right? How it is calculated, and that you understand, that you know the concept, right, by heart. Okay, that's what it matters. All righty, so that wraps up everything about the effective interest rate. Okay, so that's it for today. Um, I will see you in the next lecture. Okay, bye. End of recording.